call to order the Village of Ashwaubenon Park and Rec Board for Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Chris Zerbo,
Here.
Tracy Flukie,
Here.
Dean Hess,
Here.
Heidi Murphy,
Here.
Mark Castonia,
Here.
and Donovan Miller.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And please keep in mind our brave men and women that are helping keep us safe here and abroad. Action on the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Action on the minutes from January 16th, 2024 Park Board meeting.
Motion to accept.
Second.
The motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed, nor individuals named. Board is not able to take action at this meeting. Nobody in the audience, nobody online for comments from the public, so we will move on. Written communications, do we have something? Communication, not today, okay.
Chris, if I could have an announcement real quick.
Sure.
I just wanted to mention and ask y'all to take a look at it. On Pilgrim Way near Barnes & Noble, we have 2 street trees that somebody went in and, Haley's got them up, and basically topped. And they look terrible. And Tim is in the process of figuring out who did that work and using our ordinances to have the person that did it be responsible. The issue with that is it's on a very visible area of the Village of Ashwaubenon, and we do not want to have people think that our street department our Parks Department did the work and that's an acceptable way to prune trees. So Tim and our village attorney are working on that to see what we can do about it. I would assume, talking to Tim, that the trees will have to come down and will be replaced. And we did not do the damage of it, and the village did not do the work. And someone that did should be taking responsibility and taking care of those trees and removing them and putting them back down. But I just wanted to let you know, so please take a look at them. It's unfortunate because they're both really nice big trees that had been there a lot of years. And we don't really know who went in and did the work on them at this point, but Tim is in the process of looking into that. Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Tell me where that is again.
It's on Pilgrim Way, just to the east of Barnes & Noble.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Any other comments? No. Where am I? Action on the consent agenda.
There isn't any, is there?
Whoops, there shouldn't be any.
No, it's not in there. No. All right. We'll move on to action items. 9A, consider, discuss, and act on the 2023 Ashwaubenon Community Pool Report.
Okay, well, Melody Escoto, our aquatic coordinator, will talk about how the season went over at the community pool. Just for everyone's understanding, community pool is attached to Ashwaubenon High School. Pool was built in 2015. It's one of our community facility projects. So, Melody, you've got the stage.
Good evening. So I am going to just kind of give an overview of 2023. In the agenda, I've provided kind of just the numbers game, I guess, on how 2023 went at the pool with all of our programs that we run, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of overview if you don't already know the kind of things that we have going on at the pool. The pool starts at about 5:30 a.m. every day and doesn't stop till about 8:45 p.m. Monday through Friday. We host a a ton of different programs, and starting in the morning with an open swim fit, continuing in the day with a combination of different programs, the PE classes that come in there, the open lap swims in the afternoon. We host things during the day, like Woodside comes in and does a therapy class with their residents. The Brown County Dive Team comes in and utilizes the facility. A bunch of different things that happen in the afternoon, and then by 3 o'clock, we have the high school swim teams that are in there, both boys and girls, followed by our programs, the swimming lessons, water exercise, deep water, therapy classes, things like that, and then finishing up with the club. Weekends are booked with swim meets and swimming lessons when there aren't meets that we're hosting, swimming lessons and open swims and things like that. So it's a pretty busy place. So I just kind of wanted to go over a couple of highlights of things that happened in 2023 for us. 2023 was the first year that we hosted the largest meet that we've ever hosted, which the club won the bid for state, 10 and under state. And we had a huge showing out. There were just under about 400 kids that were in attendance for that meet. The club did an amazing job of hosting that and working with the community and the Visitors Bureau to house that many people coming into the village, and they did a really nice job of kind of operating both the facility, the pool, and utilizing the school and the gym and things like that to house that many people throughout the day, running concessions, and it was a really smooth meet, so much so that we won the bid again this year. So this weekend is actually club status again, 10 and under we are hosting. So the pool will be a very, very busy place. Actually just got the final count right now before I got here, and we're at 506 swimmers that are coming. So put 2 parents per swimmer, and you can kind of imagine the visitor load that will be coming through our facility. So we have our work cut out for us.
If you guys remember when this was more of an idyllic thought of building this type of facility, one of the things that we were able to sell it on in terms of revenue producing, and one of the reasons for it is exactly what Mel just talked about, having the larger meets. Melody, out of the 506 kids, I'm guessing that's several dozen different teams being represented from those kids. How many of them, and I know you don't know this number off the top of your head, but percentage-wise, how many are not from the area, do you think?
Oh, percentage-wise, I would say at least 70% aren't from the area. They're from everywhere, all over.
Which means those are probably heads in beds. You know what I mean? So, and then, so now, not only are you having hotel rooms filled up because of these types of meets that are being brought in, and we're also doing high school sectionals and things like that, so people from out of the area. So heads in beds for the hotels, the restaurants, the shopping, you know, it's an attraction to the village. So just wanted to point that out, that kind of what our hopes were, and that's how we got actually some funding, some grants, is specifically for that reason, that we're able to host these larger meets now. So, sorry, Mel, go ahead.
No, you're good. So yeah, this weekend will be bigger than last time, so it'll be a fun weekend. It'll definitely be a busy place. If you're trying to park around the pool, I advise not, because there won't be very much of that. So we're excited, though. The club has really done a really nice job of organizing that. So that was the big thing last February timeframe last year, and now it'll be this year. We also last year hosted boys conference and sectional meets, and as well as girls conference. We host things at the pool. Last weekend we had a program called Sea Perch. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's a program with underwater robots that the kids at the middle school and high school level, they build, and then they utilize our pool to the room off the pool, the multipurpose room that we have that we teach some classes in. They utilize that to give a presentation on their robots, and then the National Guard comes in and they're in the water, and the kids show how their robots drive underwater. So it's a really cool program that we like hosting for the community. So just a lot of different things happen in the pool, and it's just a really busy place. So for the purposes here tonight, as far as revenue goes and things like that, our programs are definitely up from last year, both in numbers and in revenue. Our rentals have gone up significantly for this year based on some of those meets that we're able to host. We do host a Y meet, and we are able to help them out with another Y meet this year, which just brings in that revenue. Their pool is just a little too small and doesn't really fit. That Ferguson family-wise just doesn't fit the capacity of people that we bring in. So it's nice that we're able to help them with our facility. They are extremely respectful of our facility, and they do a really great job hosting, and we really like having them there. So that definitely helps us there. But swimming lesson numbers are still steady. We put just shy of 1,200 kids through swimming lessons this year. That's a pretty standard number for us. On that second page, it kind of gives you the breakdown of when we have lessons each season, and swimming lessons in the summertime. We work with the school district to do swimming lessons as a DPI credit for the school district during those those summer timeframes, the first 3 sessions that we host, and they in turn help us with lifeguard costs, and we give them the profit that we make during those hours, those school district hours. So swimming lessons I would love to grow the program. Unfortunately, it's a matter of staffing and pool space. The comment I always get is, I didn't even know you had swimming lessons, and it's unfortunately not something we necessarily advertise because it fills up so fast. So I'm not able to really put it out there. I would love to, everyone says, just have more classes, but you can only fit so many kids in the pool safely at a time. So I would love to have, 4 tiny tots and 3 level 2s, but they don't all fit. So we have what we can fit and what instructors that we have that are able to teach. But yeah, it's just a pretty busy place. So if you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
So Melody, the school district pays for the pool manager throughout the entire summer or just for the first 3 sessions?
They pay the entire summer. That school district, that pool director has to be a licensed teacher as well. So I've been incredibly grateful that some of my lifeguards have come up and then grown to be teachers. So this is an awesome summer gig for them. I actually have 2 on staff that have their teaching license, which fulfills that. And then they have their lifeguarding license because they're the ones that kind of run those lifeguards during the summer. I'm bouncing between the lake and the pool. And so it's nice to have a teacher with lifeguard and teaching like swim instructor experience to be in charge of those kids. So I luck out. But because it has to be a licensed teacher, the school district does take care of that.
So the school district gets DPI credits?
Yep,
Because
for first 3 sessions only.
Correct. But
And then 4 and 5, they still pay the pool manager, but we keep the revenue?
correct.
Okay, well, that works out.
It's just been what it's always been. So
Yeah.
that's how, yeah.
Thank you.
Melody, I'd like to commend you on your monumental job and task that you have in coordinating the in-building pool and also at the lake. You have some tremendous skills, organizational skills, time management skills have to be superior, and you are a very valuable asset to the Ashwaubenon community. I thank you for that.
Thank you. That's very nice. If you see me running around like crazy, I have it all together. I'm just kind of all over the place. Sometimes you'll catch me running out of the community center like in a panic. I'm not in a panic. I just have somewhere to be. So
well, you are so lucky David's not here today.
I know.
Have to hear this.
I think I did run out 3 times today, Kelly. I don't really know. It's just the way I operate. So I might look chaotic, but you're right. I do try and keep things in order. Teenagers keep me young. At least that's what I tell myself.
All right, any other questions, comments? Nope, I think that was.
Mel, do you have any goals or thoughts for what's happening in '24? I mean, obviously, we've gotten the 10U state tournament back. Do you have any other big plans or different courses or anything? It sounds like we're pretty busy already, but I know you've got things in your mind you'd like to try.
I always have something spinning. I would love to offer some different classes. My only problem is that there's no time for it. So I can't, because these programs are successful, like my water exercise and my deep water, and they are full classes, I would love to, there's different water exercise classes and new programs I would love, but there's no place to put them because the pool's already booked up with different things. I've looked into maybe hosting something. We've talked with the club about doing some different things. I'm actually working with the high school swim coach to offer kind of like a triathlon type clinic in December. We're just kind of on the beginning stages of that, so maybe adding that aspect to the pool. We had kind of a more of a competitive swim on Sundays. That one has kind of dissolved, so I'm looking to try and kind of restart that because that was a successful program. That was a contracted program with a fitness group in the area, but that fitness group no longer does that, so I'll work with him to try that.
All right. Thanks, Melody.
Thank you.
All right, we didn't need any action on that, right?
Not,
Really informational.
not unless you want to give us a direction.
I think we're good.
There we go.
All right. C, consider discuss the formation of an Ashwaubenon Arts Advisory Council. Did I miss B? Oh, the pool rental deposit, yep. Discuss and act on the request to have a pool rental deposit of $150 per private rental.
I'll let Melody talk about this one as well.
So while our rentals are growing and they are definitely flourishing, we have started to experience a few problems, and it's kind of similar to the community center and the things that they have, but the pool rentals rent in hour-and-a-half increments, and they can do 2 hours or however long they want to do it. We've been experiencing in recent months people going over that time frame. Their party runs late or however it works, and then they're rushed to leave. They aren't cleaning up anymore, those kind of things, which then it causes my staff to stay later than their shift and have to stay to clean and pick up the cake and the frosting that's smeared all over. And so it's just become a growing problem with multiple rentals lately. So because of that, I sat down and discussed with Rex the possibility of instituting this deposit for that reason, just to cover those staff costs, to make people aware that your time is your time. I'm always very clear on how your setup and your cleanup has to be done in that time. Swimming parties are different. You know, when the kids get out of the pool, they want to usually change before they go into their room and eat, and so you need to add extra time for that. And unfortunately, these parties are just running later, and my staff are staying 30, 45 minutes later than their scheduled time. And so I'm just looking to utilize that deposit if needed to recoup some of those costs that we are incurring with those.
So this deposit is much less than what you see at the community center for a different reason. The nature of the deposit in respect would be a little bit different. You know, a lot of the community center deposit is also there for damages, and the maintenance / cleanup costs could also involve full-time staff coming in and having to clean up. Whereas at the pool, there's really not alcohol involved, there's not a damage aspect to anything. It's specifically meant for the groups that think an hour and a half is going to be just fine for their party, but all of a sudden they realize, oh no, I should have rented it for 2 hours or 2:15, and then they stall and they stay late and they don't clean up. So the 150, again, because so many residents are the ones doing the pool rentals, we're trying to keep it minimal, you know, like it's not an issue with them to be able to put that 150 up for that deposit. We didn't want to do like a 500 thing. Typically there's no need for something that expensive, which is the reason why.
What's the current deposit?
There is none.
There isn't one?
There is nothing.
Oh, wow.
They just come in and use the pool, and typically there hasn't been issues, but as Mel said.
Is there a difference between, like, do you notice a difference between residents and non-residents at all? Are you proposing a difference between?
I'm not proposing, I haven't noticed any difference. Unfortunately, the incidents that I've had have been I think one of them was a non-resident, but
Okay.
the other ones, it's just a poor party planning type thing, you know, and I get it. Kids are hard and pizza and cake and swimming and it's hard to pull them from the pool. It's been getting to my staff and so that they have to stay later and do all that. So there's just gotta be, and then on us, it's not, the cost of the rental is no longer meeting our needs with having to pay staff to stay later and stuff like that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the $150 deposit fee for the pool.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, now we get on to discuss the formation of the Ashwaubenon Arts Advisory Council.
Or whatever it winds up being called. So I'm going to guess there's going to be a number of questions on this tonight, because I would have a lot of questions if I was sitting up where you guys are. And I guess I want to preface this is really the first stab at trying to tackle this program. It could go 10 different ways. This is not the final draft by any means. The village board has not seen this. We're just trying to figure out what's the best way to form a group of art-minded people that can help make some decisions on whether it be art placement, art projects, what art is appropriate, what could be used for public art, because that's one of the strategic goals the village has, one of the directives, is to improve the quality of life, and one of the sub-issues, one of the sub-points under that is potentially forming a arts advisory council for placement of public art throughout different pieces of the village. Now, I'm not talking having an art park or anything like that, but maybe having a statue or some artwork in some of our parks. It could be some murals. Now, there are some places where murals could be painted within the village, even on some of the village property. Boy, some of our water things and like Smith Park and things like that, the back wall, some of them are ripe for being spruced up on something like this. The idea is talked about, boy, all those traffic boxes around the village are, there's green and gray traffic boxes. Wouldn't that be cool if, the high school kids or different artists came in and painted them in some different design or theme or whatnot? I mean, and art can be considered so many different things. You can, lighting could be considered art, different colored lighting under, in different areas or the parks. There's, different banners being hung. So many different things that could be considered art. And while I like to think of myself as a minimally somewhat cultured person, I'm not into art, and certainly one person, whether it be me or anybody, one person shouldn't be the one making decisions on what looks good, because everyone's going to have a different idea on what looks good, out in the public. And that's why we have that's why this idea came up, is to form an arts advisory council. And I said this could go so many different ways. So I tried to just minimalize it here for general explanation of what we're looking to try and form, or at least that's my idea of how this would go. We've been doing some reading from, many municipalities have this. Green Bay has an arts council. Appleton has an arts council. All the larger cities have an arts council, and a lot of the smaller cities do as well. And so it's like, well, that would seem to make the most sense, in terms of them coming up with different ideas of how to make our community more interesting, I guess, in terms of having artwork out there. And so the thought is then discussion could be had on what some of those items could be. A call for that art could be put out into the general Wisconsin art community. Those projects could be sent back into the committee, where people would say, I propose this, I propose that, and this is why I think we should do this. And then that committee could kind of vet all the different ideas, and if something sounded positive that they think would benefit Ashwaubenon and the visitors to Ashwaubenon, then that recommendation could be made to village board. So that's how, in our mind, we're looking at setting this up, and now granted, village board hasn't even heard this yet. You're the first group because our department is the one kind of tasked with trying to get this off the ground. And then this will actually go to village board next week for literally the same presentation that I'm giving you tonight, plus with any tweaks or suggestions that the park board may have. So that's the Ashwaubenon Arts Advisory Council. Who could be on it? Could be an artist, it could be students, it could be some of the art teachers that teach in our school district, could be someone who just appreciates the arts. So again, a lot of different directions this could go, and I am willing to start taking on questions because I'm sure a number of you may have them.
Rex, Directive 1, could you explain how we got Directive 1, which I have not seen personally?
Sure. So I'd probably say about two and a half years ago, roughly, the village board and department heads had a number of work sessions to work on what's called a strategic plan. That strategic plan covers 5 or 6 different major areas, one of them being quality of life. One of the subsections under quality of life is the potential formation of a art program within the village. And to do that art program, we would probably need this art advisory council, so it's not one person making a decision of what they like versus, more of a collective thought process of what might be appropriate. People will have different ideas, and it's probably better to come together as a group versus individually. So that strategic plan, like I said, was probably massaged by the village board and department heads on, I want to say, at least 3 or 4 different get-together meetings. And then it was presented at the village board, I'm going to guess about 2 years ago.
2021.
What's that?
2021.
2021.
I'm looking at it right now. It's available online on the website.
There you go. Thank you, Heidi.
Brian Murphy has used it before, so I know it exists.
What's that?
Brian Murphy has used it before, so I know it exists.
And so, again, a lot of things going on in the village, but it's time to try and get this off the ground, so, in some form or fashion.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you have Directive 1, enhance the quality of life, which is a pretty broad stroke in terms of accomplishment because many things qualify and depends upon who you talk to, how that's going to enhance their quality of life in the village.
Yep.
So what you're telling me is that there are other bubbles to this besides just an art facet to it, correct?
Yep.
That being said, if we're looking at an arts, we need to define basically what arts are. It could be a painting, it could be many other things, which I believe you
Which is
alluded to.
a great task for this committee to do.
So that would be the task of the committee.
That would be one of their first directives. What is it? We can give them thoughts on what we envision it as being, but we want to hear what the art community feels. That they've got the experience, they're living the life. You know what I mean? So that's part of what the committee would do is define what their goals and objectives are and what their thoughts are on the collective body of what they should be doing. And the village will have a say in it as well because it's going to be under the village's arm in terms of what the village is looking for out of this committee. But one of them would be to define what is art. And I don't know if Dean, honestly, if you can define that, because art could be 500 things to 500 different people. But again, if if that's the case, that's what they would have in their art advisory book in terms of what some of their goals and objectives are for being on the committee.
And I know this is just the beginning of this particular process that you're looking at. We had a discussion several board meetings back when we were looking at putting hubs in for fiber optics. And I believe one was Smith Park, and they were looking at putting a hub in there, or a node, if they want to call it that.
Yep.
And it would be a humongous box. And we looked at the aesthetic value of that for a park, and we weren't, there was some question about whether the surrounding neighbors would like something like that. And the idea came up of painting the box with some artwork. Okay, I don't know if you recall that conversation.
Yep.
And that box belongs to, well, I don't know if it happened, but it would have belonged to TDS, the company that put in the box.
Correct.
If there was maintenance, if the paint was chipping or whatever, that would be their responsibility to take care of that box. Now, if we go and put paint on there, I'm sure that company's not going to be held responsible for maintaining the outside surface of that box once we have touched it.
No.
So I'm looking at, it would be the function of this committee to look at the long-term effects of the impact of that art, correct?
Yep.
And then that goes with the funding on top of it. Who directly and indirectly benefits from the funding that is provided by the village for this artwork. So those are just some of the questions that I had. Maybe I should sit on the committee, but,
You sound like you've got a good start.
right. So,
Might have your first member.
And Dean, it's all good questions. This is not something that's going to be formed within a couple of months. There's going to be a lot of things that need to be worked through, questions exactly like this that aren't easily answered, because there's going to be 5 different answers, and the village is going to have to decide, as we move forward, how exactly this needs to be set up, and like you said, long-term impacts, so on and so forth. Is that the job of the committee? Is that a job of the village board? Who does that? So a lot of different things, and taking a look, if you just Google, municipal art councils, there's hundreds and hundreds of links that pop up of agencies and all their forms and applications and operation manuals for that committee per se and stuff like that. So, there's a lot of work to be done to try and figure out how does Ashwaubenon want to run it, and what do we want to have in there, and that I think is all part of it yet to be determined. If we go with this route of having the Arts Advisory Council. Again, like I said, the village board hasn't seen it. Other than it being mentioned in the strategic plan. So I don't know if everyone knows that we're even working on it right now, so this is the first crack.
yeah, I was just looking at it in terms of internal art and what I call external art. And the internal art is stuff that you have in museums where you have more control over the environmental effects upon the artwork itself as compared to the external environment. And so that brings in maintenance issues, trying to keep it up. How more resilient is it to the environment as compared to internal art? So I guess those are the questions I have as a board member.
And I'm going to probably say, like on some of these boxes, eventually things will fade. And these are all questions I'm sure that either staff or if this committee gets off the ground, they would find out from other communities. On average, how long does something like that last? And in the call for art that goes out if this is one of the projects that is an idea, it would probably give a lifespan. We'd probably want to be giving the artist a stipend, and that's all part of it, because typically an artist isn't going to do it for free. So there's going to be discussion at the village board level of how to fund it, that type of thing. There's grants, but if it's under the village's auspices, then I might not be wrong, but that doesn't make us a 501c3, which means we're probably not going to be able to get that type of funding because it's not a standalone 501c3 committee or group. It's under the village, which is not a 501c3. It's a governmental agency, which a lot of these places that give grants, they're not going to be eligible for it. So many things to talk about, but, but when you're talking about the lifespan of it, my thought, again, just reading through some of that stuff, is you put a lifespan on something. And then when things either start to get faded, the art committee could either decide to rehire that artist to repaint them as they were, or to do them all over again and have a fresh palette per se. And they can do a different design on them, and maybe it's a different artist that does it based off of whatever they submit during that call for art. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I understand you. When I look at a project, I look at the project itself, but I also look at the long term in terms of maintenance, because a lot of times funding is put towards the initial project, and we sometimes miss what monies are needed for down the road. We wait until down the road appears, and then we try to find the funding. So,
I just have two comments, like structurally of the new committee. I'm assuming, Rex, you would be the staff liaison to that committee, so you would be
It
working with
appears as
them?
if the Park Rec and Forestry Department, Tracy,
We'll
is
take
the
on-
one tasked with this project. So
Okay.
I would probably say whoever is in the director role would be the
liaison.
Unless someone like Melody or David would be excited to be the liaison.
So the question,
Great learning experience.
it would be a great learning experience.
It's actually kind of a cool and I make light of the fact I'm making a joke, but this certainly has great merits and could turn into something neat if it's done properly.
Yep. Well, and my question is, okay, do you have the time for it? Because I know you have a lot on your plate already, so that's my other question. And then I think this board or committee, maybe having a person that sits on this committee on the arts board as well, if we go that route, because I think a lot of the public art may end up, as Dean has said, in our public properties, in our parks. And maybe to have a person that serves as a park board can be that conduit between the public art and the parks, what the Parks Department does. So that might just be a consideration when it moves forward to have someone serve in that role.
Many of the communities who we have been looking at, and I've got a stack of stuff here from different communities that we've already printed off. A lot of them have representatives from other village committees on them, as well as members of the public. Many of them can also have a village board member or a city council member on that committee. Because the thought process there is someone who's already in that role, whether it be a committee member, a different committee member, or a village board / councilman, would already have a feel maybe for, as a whole, what the other governing body is looking for, and can help guide the committee as well. So yes, I agree with you. That's a real good point. That's probably how we would form it. Some committees are small, where there's 5 people, one or two, like a staff person, a board member, and then like 3 members of the public. 5 and 7 seem to be the best number, or I don't say the best number, the number that I've seen that are most common. And obviously bigger cities have a larger.
Is that what you would see for our municipalities, 5 to 7, or what's your ideal?
That's going to be up to our village board
Okay.
of how many people they would like to see us try and recruit. And quite honestly, it's going to depend on how many people are interested. Boy, if we have a lot of people that are interested in being on this committee, maybe we have a bigger one, but I don't know. I don't know how many artists and art-minded people we have in the village that would be interested in this. And we're going to start, if the village board gives us the go-ahead next week at their meeting, we'll have an article in the spring summer brochure, call for art-minded people per se, who might be interested in serving on this committee for a 2 or a 3 year term type of a thing.
So is Green Bay's Art Council an independent 501c3? Do you know? Because they get tons of money, it seems, and grants and funding for different events.
If they're getting grants, typically they're a 501c3.
Okay. So
No,
there's not a lot of state and federal grants that you're aware of for this type of work?
Not unless you're not unless you're a nonprofit.
Okay.
And which is another direction that this could go, but then, again, that's up to the village board. It can go that direction, but then the village loses some control over what art is out there, because then that nonprofit can bypass the village board and talk to different private business owners and whatnot, and have art put pretty much anywhere. You know, and then that would change our ordinances, because then there's, like I said, there's so many different directions this could go in a lot of different scenarios. So I actually have the city of Green Bay information here. Now, it said, I saw one thing where there's 5 members, but I'm looking at this.
It doesn't
looks
appear
like
to
they
be a
have 9.
501c3.
What's that?
It doesn't appear to be a 501c3. I'm looking at it right now, it's on,
It's called the Public Art Commission, so I don't know that yet. I don't know whether they're a 501c3 or nonprofit or not, but it looks like they have 9 people on theirs, which include a number of liaisons, probably from different parts of the city. It's Green Bay, much bigger.
Having sat on 2 503C organizations, the Einstein Project and the Isaac Walton League, if you set it up with that, depending upon who's interested in it, they're going to have all kinds of other things they would have to deal with as compared to, being an arm of the village as a committee. So that may change the complexion of who you get involved as well.
And we're trying to make it as easy as possible, to get this off the ground. So again, the way I have wrote it in your information sheets is more under the auspices of the village.
I think the way that it's presented, and it's not exactly written out, but that the village board would have the ultimate say, but keeping it within arm's reach of the village or this board or however it sits, that if we put a piece of art on the walking trail, that they go to bike and ped with that, is it a disruption? Or if it's going to Smith Park, that they come and present to us with that, saying, does this fit in your park? I think that's a good control to have. And, right, going to 501c3, then all of a sudden they put, this is a huge opportunity. We got all this funding and you can't say no because we got it. And then we have to kind of scramble and backpedal and figure it out. But,
and don't get me wrong, because there certainly may be people that are listening or will be listening to this discussion. There's pros and cons to each way it's set up. A 501c3, for good or bad, the committee then doesn't become political. If a board, city council has some political issue with something, then, and the Arts Council thinks it's art, and there should be different kinds of art. Now all of a sudden there's a lot of different conflict and issues between multiple groups, and if everyone gels really well together, then that's great, but that isn't always the case. So a lot of times if you're a 501c3, again, you're removing yourself out of the political arena, but that there's good and bads with that. So, anyway.
if you had to pick one municipality that is like your favorite right now, what would you say to go look at?
Right now, I'm just skimming through a lot of
Yeah,
them, Heidi.
you don't have them.
I haven't really dug into, some of these art committee guidelines are 30, 40, 50 pages long.
Light
like
reading.
manuals, light reading. So I'll be honest, I'm only trying to just get an idea of how
Okay.
things are generally set up, and I'm not really
Got it. How often are you,
doing a deep dive and figuring out which one I like the best.
how often do you foresee them meeting? Is it like a weekly commitment? Like what are you?
Well, I
or
mean,
As
if
needed?
you're starting out, you have a lot more work to do just to set your own course, so I'm gonna guess it'll be monthly starting out, and then once things get fleshed out on paper and the process gets done, then it could be less,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Or could be quarterly, you know what I mean? Because once a call for art goes out and now you've come, it comes back in, proposals come in, the committee vets that and makes a recommendation to the board, then you're basically waiting for the next cycle,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, to
Makes
do
sense.
the next. If that's all the art committee's going to do, you know, and that's kind of like what Dean said, what are they going to do? You know, there's probably a lot of different art type of things. Do you start to get into performances? Do you start to get into all these other different things? I think right now we're just looking for some public art pieces to start out with and see how that goes, whether it be sculptures or paintings or murals, statues, you know, lighting, you know, simple things that the village can do on some of its own facilities, at some of its own facilities, and then see where that might take us. But then where it might take us, then the village board still, because it's under the village's auspices, will have the say of, yes, we want you to work on that, or no, we don't want to touch that. That's not part of what we want this committee to deal with. So,
Rex, does the Performing Arts Center have any kind of board that helps select acts and people that are coming in at all? Would that be a tie-in at all, or is that too?
I don't know if they have a board per se. I know Kate and the staff there, she has an assistant. They go to different shows, almost like conventions, where you can hear about different promoters that have people in their stable, basically, of whether they be singers or comedians or whatever, you know. So they go and then they get all the information on basically a menu of what's all out there, and then they kind of whittle it down of, you know, based on cost and what they think would go over well in the greater Green Bay area, you know. So I know that that's part of the process. In terms of actually having a full board, I don't know. Mary, do you know if they have a full? I
It
don't
says
think
they have an advisory board.
An advisory board, but I don't know if they advise on what kind of shows that they bring. I think that's pretty much Kate when she goes to New York.
Heidi, in response to your question about how much time it might take, it has been my experience from setting up a number of different things over the years that initially the more effort you put into the goals, your objectives, strategies, looking at the immediate picture, the micro picture, if you will, and taking a look at the macro picture. The more that you can do that, the less problems you have down the road and the vetting process and what you're trying to accomplish on your particular committee. The more that you can work those things out in advance, due to probably quite a few meetings, the less problems you have down the road and the less conflicts among members. So.
It does look like the PAC has a pretty substantial board.
They do?
Yeah. If you look at the PAC website, you can see the members and stuff like that.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. Again, I know there's a lot of art-minded people in the village. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that some of them are willing to step up and say, hey, we'll, you know, let's try and do this together, and I'll help out, you know.
Is the goal to have the art be completed by village residents, or are you
No.
open to having the scope go outside the village as far as artists and,
I'm going to guess that it'll be open to
okay,
pretty much anyone who wants to submit something, you know, whether the village board to things being equal, wants to have something more local versus not local. I could certainly see that, but in terms of art submissions, I don't know, maybe we've got enough artists, in the village that,
I mean, you've seen the
create-
fences on Lambo.
what's
Or,
that?
You've seen the fences on Lombardi.
Right? Yep.
I would have no doubt that we've got enough people that'll be interested in serving on some kind of a council. But it's, how do we set that up? Probably the most valuable thing, I think, is to go to, communities that have done it, okay.
Yep.
How did you start?
How did you start? What do you wish you would have done different?
Yeah,
We don't want to make the same mistake.
yeah.
As you're skimming your light reading, if you come up with a municipality or two that you enjoy and would like, want to shoot me an email, and I would like to look at those in the wee hours of the morning on my overnights.
I would be happy to do that, Heidi.
Light reading.
All right. Any other discussion on this?
And it's more for information only. I mean, if you have a directive or thoughts, I think a number of you have expressed some of those already, but the next step for this will be going to the village board next week. And if they give us the thumbs up on it, then we will continue down this path. That's kind of what's listed on the agenda packet here.
I'm far from being artistic at all, but I saw this and I thought, actually, I thought it's kind of cool. We go up to Dora County, or I get down to Texas and Austin, Texas, which is very artistic. I actually enjoy walking around those areas. It's pretty neat. Hopefully we can get this off the ground.
And I think the biggest part of any of it is the vetting process on the art project that's being proposed. Looking at it, it's not offensive, who it's going to offend, the style of it and so forth. I think that's going to be a big part of putting out some criteria and looking at the vetting process for the final approval of any art project.
Yeah, that's a good point, which, getting back to the discussion before about being nonprofit or not, I think we need, as a village, need to hold on to as much control as possible because of that.
And as I said, this is, again, introductory right now. This is gonna take a while to get going, just an FYI. Okay, you can ask me in 2 months, hey, how's that going? And I'm gonna say, there's just so many different things to think about and to work on here, but it might take a while to get it off the ground, but the first step is getting a group of people who are interested together and let's get talking, and then we'll start setting a direction.
Okay. Ready to move on. D, Park Recreation and Forestry February Department Reports, Rex.
All right, I'll just go through aquatics. Mel gave a pretty good summary of what's happening right now. A lot of big swim meets, 10U coming up this weekend, gonna be packed. And then this is a month going into March that the pool's pretty busy during the school day. You might drive by and not see a lot of cars there and go, there's no one using the pool, but a lot of the school classes, PE classes are using it. And so it is definitely being used. Forestry. Well, the good and bad. There's some things that are able to be done because the weather has been so mild this winter, but unfortunately, the mild winter also probably affects forestry the most out of any of our divisions, because if we try and get into the parks, there's no frost in the ground, but everything is still mushy and wet. So we're trying to figure out. We've got a lot of trees marked in the parks that we planned on doing internally, not contracted out. And those are just waiting right now. So do we wait for the ground to dry out in the summer now to go in there during our busy season, or do we just rut something up to take the trees down? So we're trying, Tim's got a couple challenges that he's working on with that, with the mild weather. Bid packets. Now, we talked about, I don't know if we did or not. So Village Board approved the tree bid for the latest round of emerald ash borer removals last month. Unfortunately, the company that was approved has not been able to provide us information that we are required to have as part of the bid stuff. So what's going to wind up happening is it will go to Village Board again next week with a recommendation to rescind the low bid and then to award it to the second low bid, which is not very, it's maybe like $1,000 higher on a $150,000 contract. It's a fairly small amount, but unfortunately, we're going to have a little bit of a delay in mobilizing because of this. So,
Rex, I have a question.
yep.
If by Dutchman Creek, they're doing some tree work down by the creek on, I don't know if it's Carroll or Hanson. I think Carroll starts up at the top of the hill.
Yep.
I think. They're doing a pretty good job down there. I think they're just about finished with it. It really looks nice and clean.
That's Trios.
Right.
Trios is actually the next low bidder who we will be recommending next week to do the EAB removals. That section between where Hanson turns into Carroll is being removed because that's a large grove of ash. There's a couple cottonwoods in there that are remaining that have the ribbons tied around them. But all the
You said
things that we're,
cottonwoods?
what's that?
Cottonwoods?
We're keeping the cottonwoods.
Just can't accidentally get taken down.
Coopers?
Well, unfortunately, the way
Which
things
way is the wind
the
blowing?
way things are going, cottonwoods might be the last tree standing. So then we'll wish we had the cottonwoods. That's why we're not removing them.
Well, they're good for sucking up water. But no, they've done a great job down there. And
Those are all ash the dead ash from the EAB that are being removed. That's why we're doing it. And I don't know if you drive by there regularly, Dean. I know you do because I know where you live. I want to say a couple of weeks ago there was an ash tree that fell over and literally fell partially into the roadway. So again, it's a safety issue. Now it's falling into our roadways. And the walking. A lot of people walk on Hanson, so on and so forth, run and bike. So it's just like we need to remove that whole grove.
I talked to one of the guys when I went by there, and I was wondering if they were starting the 2024 program early because of the weather. And he was a new guy; he didn't know. So, but was this part of the 2024 project, or was it a separate bid?
It's a separate bid, so there's two different bids. One of them, it's the EAB removal, but then there's also some removals in for park trees and for some conservancy areas and so on and so forth. So this is separate from the actual EAB contract.
Okay. No, they did a mighty fine
I
job.
don't think it was in the second contract. I think we just needed to do it because the trees are, again, when an oak tree dies, you're gonna have a dead oak tree for a long time. When an ash tree dies, that ash tree is gonna come down fairly soon. It's just how the wood structure is on that tree. And when it comes down, it literally explodes all over the place. So it's better to take them down when you can and before they get too dry and brittle. And then they come down a lot easier that way and easier to clean up. And that's why we're getting rid of the whole group of them along that stretch.
Okay. I'm assuming they'll also be grubbing out the stumps.
I did not ask Tim that. I mean, I know we talked about a lot of things. I think they'll be grinding them out and then reseeding it to grass.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to say I rode my bicycle through Sherwood Forest Park today, and it looks really good. They did a nice job of clearing all along the trails in there, so
I have to give Public Works the props for that. I mean,
they did a good job.
Tim told them kind of what he needed.
Yep.
And again, not a lot of snow.
Yeah.
You know, we're not having to plow the streets, so we were fortunate to have guys available from our public works crew that went in there and widened those paths out, and I'm pretty sure they felled. They didn't remove them. We're in Sherwood, we're pretty much letting them lie where they fall, but I know they cut down a number of ash that potentially could fall on the trail or some of our boardwalk area.
Yeah, it looked like they might have took out a bunch of buckthorn too, the way it
Oh, yeah.
looked.
Yep.
Was the trail to the east of Shady, was that able to be addressed?
Yep.
Great.
Between Shady and Hilltop,
Hilltop,
Also-
yeah.
taken care of.
Looks good.
All right, moving on. Tim will be attending the Arborist Conference that's always held in Green Bay coming up at the end of February. Parks, again, good weather, so we were able to replace 2 of the dugout roofs out at Ashwaubenon for the boys' baseball program. So we got that chalked off. Currently, the guys are working on changing out some of the lighting in the chalet and the cafe from to LED lighting, which is about a 3-year payback on the cost. So it's needed. A lot of that lighting some of it's original from when it was built in the mid-70s. Working with Rettler and Associates right now, we're just starting the design process on the mini park over here on the other side of Holmgren Way, on Element Way, that we've got going on. We offered both apartment complex managers, owners, the ability we had a link set up where people could give their thoughts on what they wanted. The park is only like 0.4 acres. It's not very large at all, the piece of property. So there's not a lot of things that can be done in it, but there's still some options. And we didn't have a real good response. One of the complexes, just after multiple attempts to contact them, I just gave up. They weren't returning any of my calls. And then, or emails. And the other complex put it out to their residents, and I think we got a whopping 4 responses back from the other complex. So, which is okay, because like I said, it's not like there's a huge space to do all these different things, and oh my gosh, what are we all gonna put in here? It's a smaller space, so we've got some ideas which we're gonna work with Rettler on, and then bring some of those concepts back to the park board for your discussion. So, working with them on that. Playground equipment for Waterford has been ordered. Recreation, I guess I'll, just for the sake of moving this along, I'm gonna say David has been really busy. We have to have all of our summer programs through August planned out within the next 2 weeks, so we can get them in our spring, summer brochure. So Mel's been working on all of our summer aquatic programming so that I can go into the brochure. David's been working on all the recreation aspect of it, or a lot of the recreation aspect of it, as well as anything that would go in there. And Tim's got his information, we've got the information from the other departments. So that needs to be turned in about a week and a half. On a final note, about a week and a half ago, we had our day camp registration. We had a different registration system this year. We had 3 tiers. Tier number 1 was returning people who were signing up for 9 or 10 weeks. That was tier number 1. Tier number 2 was Ashwaubenon residents only who wanted to sign up for 9 or 10 weeks. And then tier 3 was anybody else, resident or non-resident, who wanted to sign up for 8 weeks or less. And I'm gonna say, by the time tier 2 got done, we were probably 90% full, and within 15 minutes, done. And we've got a waiting list of about a dozen kids for every week. So it's a very successful program. We've got a lot of returning people, and people are looking to get in. So that's a positive thing. So, And thank you to the school district for allowing us to use Valley View to run that program. It works out really well. Questions on anything that is in the benefits report or that we are doing or facility-wise that is not in the report? Dean, you're ready to say something?
No, I'm good. Anything for the next agenda? Where are we on looking at the core plan?
We are, I just worked with David today on setting all the dates. We're switching some parks around. We're adding Ashwaubenon as a meeting site to get feedback. We're eliminating one park. We're also eliminating Pioneer, but we're putting Waterford in where people can come up and hit us up during the neighborhood night event at Waterford Park. So because we're already there, and there's already a fairly good size group of families, adults that are there that we can get feedback from, rather than having someone have to make a special trip. So I think we've got 7 or 8 community meetings out in the field, which we feel is a good representation of different corners of the village. Obviously, people can come here and talk, and then we will be having David and I have already sat down and looked. We're not going to change the survey that much from what we did 5 years ago. We'll put that online. Probably, we don't want to stretch it out too long, otherwise people will just forget about it. So we'll start that survey online probably in late spring, early summer, and have it go through July, early August. So we'll have about a 2 or 3 month time that people can give their thoughts and feedback on, and then we'll bring it to Park Board and take a look at what some of the comments are and start that process, probably in late summer, early fall.
Sounds good. I was just wondering what the time frame was.
Okay, are we done with the reports then, right?
I think Tracy might have had a comment.
I was going to say something for agenda for next month, or next month's agenda, so.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Could we maybe have Tim come in and do like a 101 on our street trees, like talk about how many we lost to emerald ash borer, where we're at on replacements? Maybe also talk a little bit about the pruning of the trees, the schedules, how they're pruned, who can prune them, just to get that out in the public, because I know I have some in my neighborhood that prune the street trees as well, some residents. And I just think we need to get the word out more that,
And
these are street trees.
And people can, but they need to touch base with
Right.
Tim first, and Tim needs to have a comfort level of what their knowledge is.
Right.
How to trim a tree.
Yes. So I just think having an informational session here maybe would help get the word out a little bit more, and maybe Haley can put some out on, on the social media as well, just to let people know, because spring's coming and people will start to,
Yep.
be more aware and do that type of thing. So,
More outside stuff.
yeah.
Another thing too, so that's one report. I've also started to talk with staff about doing a report, hopefully next month, on active adult programming. And I call it active adult because I'm trying to change the name from senior citizen programming, because that kind of has a negative connotation. But quite honestly, we do a tremendous amount of older adult
Yes.
programming. And I think we do, I'll be honest, I don't know if anyone does any more other than ADRC than us. Tapir has some older adult programming. But we do a tremendous amount. And quite honestly, I don't know if you guys are aware, the numbers that we're starting to get are like, wow. We had 50 people for one of our classes just the other day, for a lunch and learn, I believe it was, sponsored by Woodside, and it's starting to get some really good numbers. So I want David and Rachel to toot their horn a little bit about what's happening there, because I don't know if you guys, and maybe you do, hopefully you do, but in general, how much of that we're doing right now, and how now it's starting to really start to roll. and build up.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea because Rachel has a ton of really great programs and lots of people are participating. So I think to give us, again, a one-on-one on that and what's going on and how the numbers are, what kind of programming she does would be great.
Yep.
She does a good job.
Getting back to the tree issue, the terrace trees in the village, as far as the pruning of those, is the assumption that that is strictly being pruned by the village? Or the village would prefer that those trees be pruned
You know,
by them?
so EAB has changed a lot. So we used to have our own, there used to be money set aside specifically to prune street trees in different sections of the village. But with the EAB, that it's just, it's a time thing and how much time we've got to be able to work on it. And Tim's like a one-man department really within the department. So he was not able to continue on with that. So we've kind of put that on the back burner for a couple of years while the EAB issue is being handled with all the contracting that we have to do on that. So historically, the village does do that. They used to do a couple different wards at a time. But we haven't done that now for probably 2 or 3 years because of the EAB issue. When the EAB issue subsides, then we can get back into doing that on a regular rotation. So residents have had the ability to prune something on their own, but they needed to talk to Tim first. That was always, they always had the ability to do that. We're always wary because we don't know what someone's ability or knowledge is of how to make a proper pruning cut, how much to take off. So we're always very cautious on that. Tim a lot of times would go out and meet with the person and see what they wanted to do and kind of gave them the thumbs up or, no, let's wait for the contract to come around to your area again to take care of it. So we don't encourage it, but if someone really wants to, if they've got enough knowledge and Tim has a comfort level, as long as they've talked with him prior to that it's doable to do it on your own.
Then I would agree with you, putting what you did on the agenda.
Thank you.
The other thing will be Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball is working with PCM Credit Union. They had made a sizable donation to resurface Field 4 and in return would have a sort of naming rights. And we had we presented 2 years ago, I believe, with a plan on potentially what things would look like. And so hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have some potential, sponsorship branding type opportunities, be it either a windscreen for the backstop and then a sign for the backstop, but we'd like to present that to the board, so.
So there'll be representatives from AYB here then? For that.
I'll have someone here to represent, and I'll probably have to abstain from the vote, I'm assuming, so, as the president, but, yes, I will have, if I don't do it, someone will be, but.
All right, so we'll be having a March meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
This